Good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Remick, and I had a question for, I believe it would be Senator Greenfield and Representative Berry in regards to House Bill 1178. With the call for, on the national stage for elections to be more inclusive, open, and have easier access, how can you defend the 1178 restricting the amount of time for elections, for early voting elections? Thank you.
Okay, first of all, Justin, you know that I just was elected recently, so I'm not an expert, but I will tell you this, that Mr. St. James or St. Paul from the radio station called this week and asked the same question, and 46 days for early voting, in my opinion, is too long. 14 days is what the bill said, and I did sign on to that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the day we're stuck with. I believe that Cory did some information searching, and I think he came up with 21 days is the national average. When I visited with Mr. St. James, or St. Paul, sorry about that, Adam. I'm going to call you somebody who you aren't. But,
you're not the first person.
I didn't call you a bad name.
No.
But I was looking more at 24 days. And how do I come up with that number? If the national average is 21 and it seems like 46 is too long, it was a ballpark number. It was not done by statistics or an analysis. It was just done by something that seems to make sense. And hopefully that answers your question. And then Mr. Greenfield will probably have a better answer.
I wish that I would have had just a couple more minutes, because Senator Wismer just said to me, how did it get to be that long anyways? And I said, I don't know. She said, it's not been on the books forever. And I was thinking, no, and I do know how to find the information as to when the last time that statute was amended. So, but I would tend to agree, 46 days does seem long. Relatively speaking, it is long. And it's interesting that I was just shown an email that prior to the question being asked that came from one of my constituents, and it was asked in exactly the same fashion. So I know that there's a concerted effort to try to gin up some feelings on certain issues, and obviously this is going to be one. But I do want to state that I think Carl is correct. This is an issue, I think when some of us were asked, you know, is it appropriate to go 46 days? That requires that ballots be printed very early on, far before people, in some cases, have even, well, let me say it this way. Subsequent to the 40-day time frame, people have tried to remove their names from the ballot in the past and have found out that, well, you can't because ballots are already printed. And so therefore it does create a situation in which somebody's not actually even running and not putting forward any effort, and they can't be replaced on the ballot by either the Democrat or Republican Party. And so that is a situation that, you know, is less than ideal. I would just think that we can probably figure out some middle ground as to what what maybe is more appropriate. We've heard from some of the auditors that 14 days will put them in a time crunch, and so I would think that we could probably land in that 24 to 30 day time frame and afford people the opportunity to vote by absentee ballot or early vote, if you will, without putting anybody in a time crunch. But I do think that 46 days is terribly far out. And I will say this also. With this last election cycle, I know there were minds changed after people had voted. I heard that expressed to me. Now, I'm not, they went either way. It went either way. So I just think that it may be to the advantage of the electorate as well if we shorten it up somewhat. I'm not saying to shorten it up so much that it's impossible for people to vote, but I am saying revisit it, have the discussion. There's no harm in that, certainly. If this bill fails, the sky won't fall. but perhaps there is a better way forward. And I do appreciate the fact that it has been cracked open for discussion.
Brock, the 46 days, I believe, was to accommodate overseas military.
And and the comment was, he believes that it was to accommodate overseas and military, and that is the one concern that has been expressed to me in emails, I guess more than any other. And so we do want to make sure that we make accommodations for them. And again, we do have to determine what other states are doing relative to the time frame, because if they can make it work with a 21-day window or a 28-day window, certainly South Dakota can make it work. But again, it is very important that our people, our servicemen and women, are able to vote, participate in the process.
Well, Adam St. Paul there kind of stole my thunder, because that's what I was going to talk about, is that
Sorry.
my understanding of this is that the 47, where we are now started back when you had to have an excuse to absentee ballot. And so it was, opened it up, the 46 days was so they could mail you a ballot, you could fill it out, and they could mail it back. And with our military, we have an Ellsworth Air Force Base, is definitely an issue. Now that you can just walk in and vote early, now that they've opened it up to vote early voting, I do agree that I think the 46 is kind of long. But that's the discussion I was looking forward to having in committees and hearing how that played out, is what do we do with the military and overseas? Because if we're going to make it hard for them to get their ballots in, then I don't think this is a good idea. If we can come up with some way to be able to separate that or something. Like I said, I was looking forward to discussion on this. Currently the 46 days was so that we could mail them out and back. And you do need time to get the mail service through, especially with our military. With that, I'll let Drew.
Yeah, and thank you for the question, Justin. I did want to address this just a little bit since it is coming to House State Affairs, which I sit on. As the bill is currently drafted, reducing the number from 46 to 14, I think that's definitely too much. I would say I'm very unlikely to support the bill as currently written. But yet there are arguments to lower the number. I'm someone who really enjoys early voting. I actually voted on the first day of early voting last go around. But there actually was an instance, where the Constitution Party had some issues this past year, and they had their convention, and after that, there were candidates suing the state to try to get on the ballot after early voting had already started. So at that point, the judge's hands were effectively tied, where you can't let someone really on the ballot or off the ballot after early voting had already started. Another case I had heard of, this happened back in the 2016 presidential primary. There was someone that went out and early voted for a certain candidate, and then that candidate dropped out before the actual election day. So there are some good cases to possibly lower that, but I would definitely not support lowering it all the way to 14. I think there's a more reasonable number somewhere if we even choose to go down that route.